Most thieves enter through doors or windows, but in today's story, we see a thief of a different kind of thief who descends on his targets from above. The story of this thief will become stranger and stranger as we go through its events. Even when you think this story is over, you will be surprised that what remains is crazier and stranger than what has passed. So, make sure you listen to it until the end. On May 20th, 2000, at around 5:30 a.m., employees at one of the McDonald's branches located in the city of Belmont, North Carolina, were preparing for a new day. They were setting up the place and the items inside the restaurant, but suddenly, a man armed with a rifle and wearing a mask appeared and calmly asked them to stay in their places. The strange thing is that this thief did not enter the place through the door. The door was still closed. This intruder was actually the thief known as the roof man because he always entered from above, through the roof. Before the employees arrived, Roof Man had been working since the early hours of the morning with his digging tools that he used to open a hole in the roof and sneak into the place. He remained hidden quietly inside the restaurant until the employees came and began preparations for the new day. The man emerged from where he was hiding and calmly asked them to follow his instructions. Then, the masked thief took the manager to open the safe inside the restaurant. The thief took all the money and then asked all the employees to enter the cooling room. That was inside the restaurant. Before entering it, he kindly asked them if they wanted to take their coats with them to warm up while they were inside, until the police arrived. So, the employees took their coats with them, and he locked them up and escaped with the money he had taken. This thief, known as Roof Man, was actually one of America's most famous thieves at that time. Although the police did not know his identity, the way he carried out all his operations was almost the same, which led them to give him the nickname Roof Man because he always descended on his targets from the roof. Roof Man was particularly focused on McDonald's branches. The reason was that they usually have similar designs, so everything about them was familiar to him. McDonald's employees who were present during his operations described him as precise, fast, and knowledgeable about everything, which means he planned his operations professionally. At the same time, all the witnesses described him as being friendly and gentle with them. According to estimates, he stole from more than 40 McDonald's branches in 3 years across various states. As we mentioned, Roof Man was very smart, which left the police baffled and unable to catch him. However, even the smartest thieves make mistakes when they carry out many operations. Returning to the operation we mentioned at the beginning, which took place on May 20th, 2000, Roof Man left the restaurant after locking the employees in the cooling room. But this time he made a mistake. He didn't close the door of the cooling room correctly, or maybe one of the employees had a spare key. Either way, the employees managed to get out of the freezer quickly and immediately called the police. The police quickly covered the area. Roof Man raised his hands, surrendered, and threw away his rifle and the bag he was carrying. After the police questioned him, they found that his real name was Jeffrey Allen Manchester. Jeffrey grew up in the suburbs of California, and when he turned 18, he joined the army due to his skills and abilities. He was selected for Special Forces training, but during one of the military operations, a problem occurred, and Jeffrey was used as a scapegoat and demoted from an active soldier to a reserve soldier. This apparently affected his pride. In 1997, he began his career in robberies, and he continued with these operations for 3 years until he was arrested in 2000. The Roof Man robberies would occur in a particular area or state for a while before disappearing, and then reappearing in another state, which perplexed the police. But after investigation, they understood that Jeffrey's movements were due to his work in the army, which determined the locations of the robberies because, during these 3 years, Jeffrey was still considered a soldier, and sometimes the army would move to other states to receive different types of training. Anyway, Jeffrey was tried and sentenced to 45 years in prison. He was shocked by the verdict because he was only 27 years old at the time. However, he was sent to a prison in North Carolina called Brown Creek to serve his sentence. There, Jeffrey was the perfect prisoner for 4 years. He was well behaved and didn't cause any problems. As we all know, prisoners who are well-behaved and follow the rules may have their sentences reduced, but that wasn't Jeffrey's main goal. No matter what, he needed to get out of there. Sometimes, Jeffrey would hear the sound of a truck pulling into the prison's workshop. The vehicle would drop off some materials and items at the garage and then leave. For him, working in the workshop meant getting closer to the vehicle so he could use it to escape. So, he petitioned the jail administration for a job in the workshop. Jeffrey's good behavior and activities convinced the jail administration to grant him this request. As soon as he began working in the workshop, he started paying close attention to the truck's arrival timing and the guard's protocols. Whenever it arrived, the truck comes to the workshop once or twice a week in the morning, depending on demand. Before leaving the prison, the guards unload the needed items from the truck, and in order to ensure that no inmates were hiding in the truck, the guards conduct an extensive search, which includes opening all doors in the trunk and looking in every nook and cranny of the vehicle. There was no way for him to get away in the truck unless he vanished. He needed to deceive the guards' eyes. One day, Jeffrey quickly went under the truck and took measurements of the iron support bars. Jeffrey started making a large wooden panel that could be hung between the support bars underneath the truck. When he finished, he painted the panel black. He took pieces of cardboard and painted them the same color, so that he could cover himself from the front when he lay on the panel under the truck. Once he had everything ready, Jeffrey waited for the best possible opportunity to execute his plan. On June 15, 2004, the opportunity came. It was raining, and the guards were scheduled to inspect the truck that day. So he knew that it was his chance and that he must take advantage of the bad weather. He took the black panel and the pieces of cardboard, and as soon as the guards looked away from the truck, he hung the panel between the support bars and lay down on it. Jeffrey was lying on the suspended panel between the support bars. He then took the black cardboard and placed one in front of him to cover his head and another behind him to cover his legs. After a short while, the truck driver returned with the guards to conduct the routine search of the truck before leaving. They were in a hurry because, as we mentioned earlier, it was rainy and the weather wasn't good. So, the guards quickly checked the truck from the inside, and then took a stick with a mirror at the end to check underneath the truck. They didn't notice anything strange because the black color of the wooden panel and cardboard pieces made them blend in with the rest of the components under the truck. In this way, Jeffrey stayed on the wooden board until the truck moved away from the prison, and then he jumped off. This made the roof man the first prisoner to escape from Brown Creek Prison since its establishment. The guards at the prison never expected this to happen, so they took some time until they discovered what was going on. Once they found out, they informed the police, who spread throughout the area trying to locate Jeffrey, but he had already disappeared without a trace. The authorities thought that he might try to return to his hometown in California, where his family still lived. However, contrary to all expectations, Jeffrey decided to stay in North Carolina in a town near the prison. The town is called Charlotte and is only a few kilometers away from the prison. Therefore, he chose to hide in a toy store. As soon as he entered the store, he looked like any other customer and began to think about where he could hide without being seen. The store was huge, and after searching, he found a large wooden display on the wall with a small space behind it. No one could see him there unless they removed the wooden display. Jeffrey entered the small space and waited until the store closed. Then he went out and started his shopping spree. He took everything he needed, including a bed, blankets, and even children's meals. The second thing he needed to take care of was the surveillance cameras so that he could know the appropriate times to leave. Jeffrey was able to break into the manager's office, as usual, from the roof, and there he found all the surveillance camera systems and the employee schedule, and began studying everything carefully. He understood how the surveillance system worked, how to turn the cameras on and off, the angles of the shots, and all the details he needed. He then studied the employee schedule, knew their names, their working hours, and how the work was distributed among them. Gathering all the information he needed to live comfortably in this place, without being discovered, that's exactly what happened. Jeffrey remained hidden in his usual spot. behind the wooden display window and only came out at night after the store was closed. He knew the police were patrolling the area and looking for him everywhere, so he wasn't willing to take any risks. He survived by eating the children's food sold in the store, which was enough to keep his life safe without being caught. He was in a toy store where he had many things to entertain himself. He played with remote-controlled cars at night and sometimes rode a bike around. Months passed, and he spent more than 4 months in the Toys R Us store without leaving. It was like he was living in a prison, but he didn't want to break free until he had a solid strategy in place. However, the end of the year was approaching, and by that time, a store like Toys R Us would be crowded all the time. If Jeffrey remained here, he might put himself in danger of being found. Hence, he decided that it was time to start looking for a new place. In fact, the Toys R Us store was located next to a huge electronics store called Circuit City. However, the electronics store had been evacuated and shut down. The store was completely empty from the inside, and there was a shared wall in the middle between it and Toys R Us. One night, Jeffrey climbed onto the roof of Toys R Us and walked until he reached the roof of the abandoned Circuit City building. He had stolen digging tools from the maintenance room at the Toys R Us store. He used them to create a hole in the empty roof of Circuit City and went inside the building. There, he found the perfect hiding place, a stairwell with an empty space underneath it, covered by light wooden panels painted to match the wall. He removed the panels and went into the space underneath. The space was small, dirty and dark, but perfect for hiding. Jeffrey cleaned the place and then managed to provide it with electricity from the nearby Toys R Us store. He also installed ventilation and air conditioning, and he found a way to connect the two stores. Through the maintenance room at Toys R Us, instead of moving between them from the roof, he opened a hole in the wall of the maintenance room, which was adjacent to Circuit City, under a set of shelves, making it difficult to notice. Through this hole, he connected the hiding place under the stairs in Circuit City to the Toys R Us, making it a secret passage that he could use to enter and exit at any time. The space he carved out for himself under the stairwell became his personal paradise. He had access to electricity, which allowed him to bring a bed, lighting, and a portable screen that he used as a monitor in order to spy on the personnel and customers of the Toys R Us from his hidden room. He stole many small cameras, originally intended for monitoring kids, and strategically placed them throughout the store. Jeffrey created the perfect system to stay out of sight and avoid getting caught, while also enjoying maximum freedom. However, after months of self-imposed isolation, he began to feel bored and lonely. Many months had passed since his prison escape, and it's likely that the police were not actively looking for him anymore. So, he decided to go outside his secret room, but for that, he shaved his beard and cleaned up his appearance so that no one would identify him. It was the first time Jeffrey had been out in public since he entered the Toys R Us store, and he was very happy with this experience. However, after that, Jeffrey realized that he would need money to enter the shops and restaurants in the town. Therefore, he planned to rob Toys R Us, but instead of taking toys, he would take cash. But then he discovered that the money was locked in a strong safe in the manager's room, which meant that it would be an armed robbery. However, he was unarmed, and during his exploration of the city, he discovered the location of a weaponry shop. He went back to his room to get everything ready. At 2 a.m., he emerged from his hiding place and made his way to the nearby gun shop. He dug a hole in the store's roof, as he often does, and stole for handguns, then walked out of the shop and went back to his hidden lair. On November 28, 2004, in the early morning hours before any customers entered the Toys R Us store, Jeffrey wore his mask, took his gun, and entered the store as usual. He politely asked them to be quiet and lie down with their faces on the ground. Then he asked the manager to open the safe and give him all the money inside. After taking the money, he ran to the back of the store and opened the emergency door, which triggered the fire alarm. However, he didn't actually leave through that door. He wanted to deceive and mislead them into thinking he had left. He then returned to his secret room in the store. The staff immediately called the police and told them that the thief had left through the emergency door. The police began searching the surrounding area, but didn't realize that the thief was hiding in the adjacent store. Meanwhile, Jeffrey was in his hidden room, counting his loot, which amounted to around $15,000. He waited in his hiding place for a few days, until the search operations calmed down. After a few days, Jeffrey started going out daily, strolling around the town and visiting public places and shops without any fear of being caught. He started going to the church in the town regularly, where he met people and made friends, including the church pastor himself. He even used to bring stolen goods from Toys R Us as gifts for the orphans. He chose a pseudonym and named himself John Zara, aiming to start a new life with a new identity away from prison and his criminal past. He frequently went to church and became an active member. One day, a volunteer named Lee Wainscott caught his eye, and the two of them set up a time to meet and get to know each other better. However, Jeffrey told Lee that he was actually an agent in the American Intelligence Agency, and that he was on a mission that he couldn't disclose any details about. This was his excuse for not telling her where he lived or giving her more information about his life. Jeffrey shared the same story with everyone he met through the church, and they all believed it, or at least didn't question it. For a while, Jeffrey enjoyed this routine. Eventually, he became tired of it. He realized he couldn't keep this up forever. Jeffrey knew that he had to examine the place and find a new way of living. However, before he left, he decided that he had to rob one last time. He planned to do the same thing he did in the first theft, but this time things didn't go as he wanted. His pride made him make a stupid mistake, so the operation wasn't as accurate as usual. Like the first operation, the attack had to be in the morning once the store opened. Before the customers started getting in, he watched the employees through his screen, waiting for the opportune moment to surprise them. He needed all the employees to be in one place, so that he could threaten them collectively with his weapon. He kept watching until he saw the perfect moment, and then he entered the store carrying his weapon. He pointed the gun at the employees. But what he didn't notice was that there was an employee who was far from the others. As soon as he realized what was happening, he ran from the store and Jeffrey's plan was foiled. In the tension and rush, he forgot to open the emergency door and the alarm did not ring. When the police arrived, the employees told them about this information and concluded that Jeffrey was still in the building. This time, the police searched the place thoroughly, and when they reached the maintenance room, they were able to find a hole that Jeffrey had dug between Toys R Us and the abandoned Circuit City store. They entered through the hole and began searching the abandoned store. After a thorough search, they were surprised to find Jeffrey's secret room and the things inside, but Jeffrey was not there. Apparently, he sensed danger and fled the scene before the police could catch him. The police were immediately able to obtain Jeffrey's fingerprints, and they knew that he was the same man who had escaped from Brown Creek Prison, which was located near the town. The police immediately printed thousands of copies of Jeffrey S. picture with his full name on it, and distributed them throughout the town. After a short while, the people at the church recognized him and reported to the police that they knew him as John Zara. They also told them that this man had a girlfriend named Lee. The police went to Lee's house and told her about the situation. Her boyfriend was actually one of the most wanted men in all of America. She initially refused to believe the police, but after they showed her a newspaper article about Jeffrey Manchester's prison break, she came around and agreed to help the authorities in any way she could. She told them she was supposed to meet with Jeffrey at a place later that evening. He believed that, even though the world had turned upside down, the authorities had not recognized him. He intended to visit his lover at her house before disappearing, and informing her that the intelligence agency had assigned him to a brand new mission far away. Although Jeffrey knew that there was a risk involved, he wanted to see her and reassure her before he disappeared. But when Jeffrey arrived at her home, he rang the doorbell and was surprised to see the police opening the door and surrounding him from all sides. He was arrested, but before the police took him away, he asked them to let him speak to his girlfriend. He apologized to her for everything he had done, expressed his love for her, and explained that his criminal past prevented him from starting a new life with her. She remained silent during that moment and did not respond to him, But later, in an interview, she said that she did not hate him, but she just felt disappointed. In any case, Jeffrey returned to prison after 7 months of freedom. This time, he was sentenced to 47 years in a heavily guarded prison, which was much stronger than the one before. The sentence was very harsh. When we hear a story like this from the perspective of a thief or a criminal, we may feel that he is the hero, and we may applaud him unintentionally, but in the end, we must not forget that he is a criminal. What do you think?